start with some of our experts here. So Peter, can you introduce who you are and your business? I know you specialize in a very specific area of home performance, so I was hoping you can tell us a little bit about that work.
Yeah, hey, good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity. Excited to once again be part of the Green Tour. So my name's Peter Grube, and I am co-owner of Northwest Aero Barrier. So we here at Northwest Aero Barrier believe that better buildings matter, and by that we mean buildings that are healthy, comfortable, energy efficient, and will last for generations. And the role that we play in that is helping to stop unwanted air leakage. So we are air sealing building envelopes.
Hey, thanks, Peter.
That's the short version, I assume.
We'll get we're really excited to have been able to capture Peter in action on a local retrofit project. So we'll dive in a little deeper into that project, but very soon we'll be releasing that, and you can learn more about that project on our website as well. So I also want to get to know our homeowners a little bit as well. So let's see, let's start with Michelle. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what your motivations were for getting started with making some of these energy upgrades?
Yeah, hi, I'm Michelle Porter, and I'm an economist here in Bend. And my motivations for getting started with upgrades, we purchased our home in 2015, and it was built in 1992, so it needed updates. And many of those updates ended up taking the form of energy upgrades. And so that was our main motivation for making the changes in our house.
All right, thanks, Michelle. All right, and Jamie and Josh, could you also introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your project?
Yeah, sure. I'm Jamie Harbick, and we bought a 1920s house in 2014. And it had been a rental for maybe 20 years. I think it was remodeled last in the 80s. So it needed a lot of help in terms of cosmetic upgrades and also energy efficiency. So it had to be done, I guess, and it made sense to put in some of the upgrades we did as far as more insulation and a ductless heat pump and some other projects. Do you want to speak
Great.
And I'm Josh, Jamie's husband. And yeah, kind of similar. We just, the house needed a lot of work, and we wanted to make it as efficient as we could along the way. I also work for a home efficiency contractor here in town, Greensavers, and had for a few years before we purchased the home. So kind of knew some of the things that we wanted to make a priority. Such as air sealing and making the envelope, efficient heating systems and water heaters, that sort of thing.
All right, great. Thank you all. All right, so Michelle, when you were getting started on your project, what kind of goals did you have for your upgrades, and how did you prioritize the projects? I know you have a long list of things that you accomplished. So how did you decide what to do? And I'd love for you to share a little bit about how your background as an economist shaped some of these decisions, because I know you've shared a little bit of this as well.
Sure, yeah. So when we started with our energy upgrades, we wanted to reduce our carbon footprint, improve the comfort of our home, and also reduce the cost of our energy. And so when we started to look at those things, of course, our work as economists, my husband, Steve Porter, also as an economist, really helped us look at the cost-benefit analyses of each project and determine, which things were going to provide benefits and outweigh the costs, et cetera. So in the end, we decided to start small with things we could do ourselves just to sort of get our feet wet. So we replaced all of our lighting with LEDs. We sealed air leaks around windows and doors, and we added some insulation above my son's room. Once we did those things and realized, hey, we're actually getting some benefit from this, our energy bills are going down, our house feels more comfortable, we were ready to move on to bigger projects. So at that point, we outsourced water efficient plumbing. We had Greensavers come in, and they improved insulation, changed some ductwork and improved ventilation in our roof so we weren't getting ice dams. We also got E2 Solar to come out and install solar panels. And the really great thing is once we finished all of this work, not only was our house more comfortable, but we are saving a tremendous amount of money. So we save about $800 a year now in energy bills. Our gas bills are down 30%, and the solar panels cover 100% of our electricity needs. So this has been such a great improvement for us. And of course, we feel good about it along the way because we have substantially reduced our carbon footprint.
All right, yeah. Okay, and Jamie and Josh, I know that you also have a long laundry list of projects that you are working on over a number of years. So I was hoping that you could tell us a little bit about which projects you tackled yourself and which you worked with a contractor for.
Can we talk about that? Hey, Megan's joined us. Let's see, we tackled a fair amount of it in the beginning on the old house. It had a roof that needed replaced, and there really wasn't attic space or much insulation there. It just kind of had an R11 and forwarded it. So we ended up kind of tearing that roof assembly off and rebuilding it so we could adequately insulate that space and then put a new metal roof on. And so that was kind of one of the big ones that we did on our own. We worked with Greensavers to replace the heating system and the water heater, and they also helped a bunch in the crawl space, just getting it weatherized from below and re-insulating. The house has a really tight crawl space as well. So what else?
So the house is 100 years old, and when we bought it, it was maybe 850 square feet, and there had been at least 3 separate additions. And some of them were done well, and some of them were lacking, I think, in structural integrity. And so part of the roof project was just sort of stripping things down. And there was also problems with the insulation and weather sealing, I think in part because of that. It's kind of a mess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Well, I see that we also had Megan join us in here, and thanks for jumping on board, Megan. I'd love to have you do a quick intro, and then we can have you follow up on some of these projects that you worked on with both the Porters and Jamie and Josh. So taking a step back, Megan, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? And I'd love to hear about your best and worst day of work to kind of give us a sense of what it means to be a home performance professional.
Yeah, you guys able to hear me all right? I'm just getting in. Sorry for being a bit late there. Am I coming in loud and clear?
Yes, you're coming in loud and clear. And full disclosure for everybody, this was our fault. Megan didn't have the right link. So Megan is very timely. Thanks for sharing with us, Megan.
Yes, and Robert should be joining us shortly. He just received the link as well. So yeah, I'm Megan, and I'm our senior home performance consultant here at Greensavers. I've been with Greensavers about 4 years and do our primary project design. So kind of a day-to-day, I meet with homeowners, utility representatives, general Central Oregon community stakeholders that have an interest in improving the structure of typically their home residence, which can entail everything from recommending air sealing and insulation upgrades, improving the overall thermal shell of the home, to considering things like air quality, anything that might also contribute to a home's energy consumption, HVAC systems, which of course also play a role with some of our air quality stuff, domestic water heating, so a whole lot of stuff. And in terms of best and worst days, you're asking somebody who spends a fair amount of time in crawl spaces and attics kind of what the nastiest thing I've seen is, so I'll spare you. And I'm fortunate to have a very gratifying job on a daily and more, I guess, broad basis. So there are definitely, projects, individual measures I've been very excited about, both from a design conception standpoint to receiving some of the feedback from clients. I did once have a homeowner approach me in a grocery store. I'm pretty excited about the difference that had been made in her home from darn near every aspect. And that felt pretty good. But again, I'm pretty lucky in that each and every day has got a lot of good and sometimes some unsavory stuff, but it's overall a pretty good gig.
All right, thanks, Megan. Great, and we also had Mike jump on board too. We're gonna dig a little bit deeper in a few minutes into some solar questions, but Mike with E2 Solar is here. And Mike, I'd like to just have you do a quick intro of who you are, who E2 is, and how you ended up in this line of work.
Okay, good. Nice to see everybody. I'm not on a rooftop, by the way. That's I've had that comment a couple times that I wasn't being safe, so I'm not on a rooftop currently. I started in solar 20 years ago. I had visited a friend of mine in Hawaii back in 1999, and I had been at the same job for 10 years, and I was really pretty bored and was already pretty sustainability minded. And when I started going around to some job sites in the Hawaiian Islands and seeing off-grid power and things like that, for me, that was just a click moment. And I just, at that point, had to be involved with doing solar. And it was literally a light bulb moment. And it's been 100% full steam ahead ever since. I get caught up a lot in my day-to-day duties, which I'm not installing solar a lot anymore. I'm kind of in an office doing design work and running a business, but I still get to be involved in what I'm passionate about. So I'm pretty fortunate from that standpoint, and it's nice to see customers and other colleagues out there. So thanks for having me.
Try to just wing it on her laptop.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. And Mike did join us earlier from a job site today. So he's been a very busy guy today, and we appreciate him lending his expertise with us today.
Yeah, thanks. We did lose, we lost 3 days to that smoke as far as the installation. So it was kind of necessary to go out and lift a couple of modules today, which now I'm going to have massage tonight or something. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a really good segue to talk a little bit more about the building envelope and why this is so important to be talking about making our homes more efficient right now. So Peter, can you give us a little insight into what your aero barrier is a little bit more and talk about how it can really help to preserve indoor air quality here in Central Oregon?
Yeah, so there's a lot in there, Lindsay.
I know, sorry. Maybe we can take it one step at a time.
Kind of take it like little bites at a time. And we're focused here, I think, in a retrofit capacity as well. So when we're looking at a building envelope, fundamentally there are 4 really important primary control layers that have to do with sustainability, durability, risk factor. So you've got bulk water control. You better keep the heavy water out. You've got air control, stopping unwanted air leakage coming in and out of the envelope. You've got moisture control, and then thermal control, and that's your insulation. So you need to take care of all of those elements in order to have a home that's going to serve you well. Because if you're not able to control that environment, you don't have a lot going for you as far as any of the issues of health, comfort, energy efficiency, or durability. So you've already heard the homeowners and the experts and everyone saying, mentioning air sealing. So stopping unwanted air leakage through the building is quite important, again, for health, for comfort, for energy efficiency, and for durability. And so there's lots of ways to do it. And you can go around and search on your own. Homeowners can do it. You can, typically it's done with caulks and foams and gaskets. My particular company, Aero Barrier, has an automated way of doing it. Basically, the process consists of pumping up the home with air so that all the air is rushing out of all the leaks everywhere. And then we are installing emitters inside the house, and the emitters are putting out a sticky caulk, and it's atomized. So it creates what looks like a sticky fog inside the home. So as the air is rushing out all the leaks, those air currents are carrying sealant directly to the leak. So it's like a leak-seeking missile that goes right where you need it, like the perfect human that doesn't miss, and it's applied by physics. So the aero barrier is extremely effective at getting the really hard to find, death by 1,000 cuts, little leaks everywhere. And kind of all the folks here that I'm looking at, homeowners and experts, they know where these leaks are gonna pop up. So aero barrier itself, the technology, the seal is able to create about a 1/2 inch seal. Anything larger than that, we kind of have to mitigate manually with a variety of other techniques. But to your point, Lindsay, or your direct question about what we're seeing with air quality and the smoke recently, that really drove the point home that a lot of us in the sustainable building world have been talking about for a long time, but it just became really acute with these air quality indexes of 450 and 500, and it's amusing a little bit now that people actually know what we're talking about when we say that, because we've been talking about air quality issues and pollen and allergens and these things for quite a while, but now it's really hit home. So you're not able to maintain the indoor air quality of your environment, of your home, if you have unwanted air leakage. So that whole premise is control the envelope first, then you can benefit from good filtration, good ventilation, but it starts with controlling the envelope.
All right, thanks, Peter. And then just a quick synopsis of when you're doing aero barrier in an existing home, there's an ideal time to do that. So it can be tricky depending on when you're trying to do this in the process. So the project that you did most recently here in Bend, can you talk about how that works with timing? And then we'll jump over to Greensavers to talk about some other scenarios with air sealing as well.
Great. Yeah, for the aero barrier technology specifically, it's great when folks are deciding to do a full renovation or an upgrade or a remodel. If you're taking your home down a little bit, taking off some of the trim, replacing floors, redoing things, that is by far the most cost-effective, beneficial time to address energy measures as well. So if you're gonna dig in and you're gonna do a cosmetic remodel, use that opportunity to do a energy remodel. So if someone has all their furniture out of their house and they're pulling off baseboards and replacing floors, if we can get in and install the aero barrier at that point, that's optimal. That works really well. The preparation process is much like, for aero barriers, much like if you were going to be spray painting the inside of a home. So it's doable, but quite challenging if someone's living in the home. A lot of people say, hey, can you come in and do our house? That sounds great. It's like, if you can move out for 3 days and we can prep everything, yes, we can do it. But optimally, it's if someone's doing a whole house remodel, it's perfect.
Great, thanks, Peter. And since we now have Robert here from Greensavers, Robert, I'll have you introduce yourself, and I'd love to transition over to talking about doing some air sealing and other upgrades in existing homes. So in the standard scenario where people are trying to get jobs done where they aren't going to be completely moving out of their home, what does that process look like?
Sure, thanks, Lindsay, and I want to apologize for the technical difficulties earlier. So what does that process look like? You know, there's a few different ways we could start a process like that, but typically, or one of the most popular would be a home energy audit. And if a homeowner was looking at ways on how to improve the energy efficiency of their home, we come out. One of the tests we run is a blower door test, and that quantifies how leaky or tight a home is. And if the homeowner wanted to move forward in addressing that issue, the air sealing specifically, we would schedule a time to come back. A lot of times it's done in conjunction with another part of the project, an insulation measure. If you're air sealing in the attic, it's also a great time to insulate in the attic. So It really looks like a couple people crawling around in the attic with foam guns and caulk guns and you know, getting to all those electrical penetrations and plumbing penetrations and duct penetrations and all kinds of penetrations, and gluing them up tight, sealing them up tight. So it's a labor intensive process, but usually within a day we would have that home, you know, significantly tighter. I don't want to get too in the weeds with language about CFM reductions and so forth, but a day of air sealing in the standard house can make a huge difference in both the comfort and efficiency of that home.
Thanks, Robert. And I think that Michelle can really attest to this, because I know that she had some work done to help prevent ice dams. So Michelle, what were some of the issues that you were seeing? And then we'll follow up with Robert and Megan to talk about some of the ways they addressed that. Ice dams are really too common here in Bend.
Yeah, so we had really bad ice dams that a couple of years back when we had the really bad snowstorm. And particularly it was on the kind of northeast facing roof of the house in a corner. And, you know, that area just wasn't getting much sunlight, and there was an opportunity for the snow and the ice to really melt. And so it just melt enough as the sun came up, and then it'd freeze right back up. And so, you know, we're talking like probably 5 or 6 inches deep of ice that just built up on the corner of the roof of the house. And then of course you get the icicles hanging down, and they were right above our sliding glass back door where you go in and out of the house. So it was also a danger in addition to, you know, potentially causing leaks within the house. So immediately after all that cleared, we called Greensavers, and Megan actually was the one who came out and took a look at our house. And she talked to us about how you can improve ventilation under the roof and get the airflow going so that you don't have those ice dams forming, and also improving insulation to prevent heat leaks. But I think that those are things that Megan can really speak to more knowledgeably than I can, but generally as a layperson homeowner, that's how she explained it. And so we had them come out and do the work that Megan recommended, and we do not get ice dams anymore. If there is ice, it's very minimal, and it's the kind of thing that with like a little bit of a roof rake, you can go out and clear. So it made a huge difference, and I can't imagine what the costs might have been had we not had Greensavers out and we'd had some kind of leak within the house. And of course, as you all may recall, at that time that was happening to a lot of people. And so not only do you get the leak, but you can't find the contractors to come out and fix it because it's happening to everyone. So I highly recommend, if that's something that you're getting on your house, to definitely talk to Greensavers about how to fix it, because I think it probably prevents a lot of cost and heartache down the road. But again, Megan can probably really speak to the specifics of how everything works.
Yeah, Megan, do you want to fill in there and talk about some of the common things you see with ice dams? And
yeah, those are two of the nastiest words in Central Oregon for a lot of homeowners. And I do think Michelle hit on a really important concept there at the end, that it's definitely more cost effective and less of a pain and a headache to address these measures before an ice dam occurs. And these measures are kind of something I think really describes home performance really well, in that we like to look at attics and homes in general holistically, believing that these are systems that are a whole that is more than the sum of its parts. And so kind of fleshing out what a lot of what Michelle was hitting on there, first and foremost, we want to air seal. We of course want to prevent as much heat from getting into the attic space as we can, because it's not super fun to pay to heat the great outdoors. And we don't want to trade that air with our attic and homes for the reasons we've been talking a lot about with air sealing, air quality, that kind of stuff. But in essence, heat getting into our attic space is where an ice dam can begin. And if heat gets trapped in our attic space, it will then do what heat does, rise, where it can hit snow that's piled up on the peak of the roof, turn that to water where it flows down, and far too many homeowners probably know the rest of the story where you get that ice dam. So we first and foremost want to make sure we're not trading air with our attics and homes in a way we don't want to, using the lovely air sealing techniques, aero barriers, more manual stuff Robert was describing. And then passive ventilation, which, having done this work during a couple of the nasty storms we've seen, I would say I've observed the homes experiencing the most significant and consistent of ice dams do tend to have ventilation issues, as we're gonna get some heat in our attics, even with a very well-sealed home, a properly sealed duct system. So it's very important to get that heat out using proper and balanced ventilation. And then also small little other things. I believe at Michelle's home, we also needed to address some exhaust fans that were improperly venting into the attic space, adding more heat and moisture we don't want in there. And then of course, kind of the cherry on top is having an adequate amount of insulation for our climate. So an ice dam is kind of, in a nutshell, getting too much heat in your attic. So we want to get that heat out of there using air sealing, ventilation, and insulation.
Yeah, and
Thanks, Megan.
Megan, I will add, since you all came out and did that work, our gas bills are down 30%. And I know a big chunk of that is due to the work that you all did with our duct work and insulation and the ventilation. So I know these are funny projects because as a homeowner, they're not sexy. It's not, you know, putting in a cool quartz countertop or hardwood floors. But these projects are so important from a comfort and future potential cost perspective. And, you know, just from a climate perspective as well. So anyway, I did want to tell you, because we haven't spoken, I don't really think since then, that it made a huge difference in our house. So thank you. And I really recommend the work you do to any other homeowners who are contemplating whether or not they should be, you know, doing some of the projects that you all recommend.
That's good to hear. Thanks, Michelle. And that is feedback we receive consistently. So good.
Good. Well, we have a question that just came in related to this. We've been talking about attic insulation. Do you address insulation in the walls? And would a house built in 2005 be okay in terms of insulation?
Sure. So a house built in 2005 probably has wall insulation that you can't do much about. It has a 2x6 wall, so and the cavity should be filled. The attic of that 2005 home could potentially need some help. I actually, once upon a time, lived in a 2005 home that had horrible attic insulation before we got into it. And it was mostly about the more complicated to insulate areas. So the vertical walls in the attic are called knee walls. And depending on a bunch of technical stuff, like how the truss system was designed, there can be big areas for improvement in such spaces. So yes, 2005 home definitely has more insulation than a 1970s home, but still has a real potential to upgrade. Even the code itself was R38 in 2005, and typically now we're putting in R50. So just right there, there's some more insulation could go into that attic. And if there's anything at all complicated about that attic, 2005 was a time where building and bend was pedal to the metal. So there's some potential that it should be checked out.
I will add, do you remember what year it became code to insulate your walls in Central Oregon for some of our older homeowners or older housing stock homeowners?
So code was to insulate your walls was, I believe, early 70s. So maybe 74, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I was just thinking, as he was mentioning, early 70s is when it became a code requirement to insulate exterior walls, but we do see homes that don't have exterior wall insulation, and that is a real big bang for buck in terms of efficiency, comfort, noise reduction. So if there are Central Oregon homeowners with a house that was built before the early 70s, it could be worth looking into.
Great, thanks for that follow-up, Megan. And I think kind of building off of that, homes built before 1970, going all the way back to 1920s homes, Jamie and Josh, what is your, can you expand a little more on what your insulation project looks like in your attic? I know you talked about it a little bit at the beginning.
Yeah, so our old house, at some point, somebody did, I'm going to drift a little bit here from your question, but just insulation as a whole. It's a 1920 house, and there is an R11 in our walls. And when we first got the home, there was also an R11 in the ceiling, which most of that is vaulted ceiling. So it did have to go along with that roof replacement. Framing and foam board insulation through the majority of the attic. We do have a couple of flat attic spaces that are now in R60 up there. And the air sealing and insulation of that space made a huge difference in the overall quality of our house.
Great, thank you. And then I don't know either Jamie or Josh if you want to talk about this, or you can pass it off to Robert or Megan. But what are some of the other common issues that you find in older mill homes? And is it common to find any kind of areas uninsulated, or what are some of the biggest things that somebody in an older home might need to look for?
I would guess our project or our house was pretty common. We have friends in the neighborhood that have a lot of the same problems that our house did when we first bought it. So that being said, I think Robert and Megan can speak to it a little more.
Yeah, you know, we were hitting on that with a lot of home performance is driven by building code. So homes that are older, we'll say pre-1970s is just kind of a clean cutoff here, very oftentimes have no insulation in the floors, if they do have some in the walls, or they can be similarly to what Josh and Jamie described. If there is some, it might not be much. In particularly older homes, we can find there are less than ideal materials insulating in spaces, everything from asbestos to newspaper. So that is very common to find older mill homes in particular that have very little insulation, inadequate materials that we would like to address, whether it be remove and replace or beef up.
The other thing I would add to that is the mechanical systems. Some of these homes have mechanical systems that are going on 4 or 5 decades old, maybe even older. And you can capture a lot of efficiency gain by updating a 40-year-old gas furnace.
Great, and I think in Jamie and Josh's project, you did a ductless heat pump. Is that correct?
Yeah, we also worked with Greensavers. It had a wood stove and cadet heaters when we bought the house, and we installed a ductless heat pump in there.
Yeah.
As well as got rid of the old electric tank-style water heater and put in a tankless natural gas water.
Great. And so in that kind of situation, Megan and Robert, why do you choose to do a ductless heat pump in their mechanical upgrade?
Heat pumps do offer a lot of benefits. Some of it depends on what camp you might be hanging out in, but heat pumps do offer very efficient electric heat for our homes, which is a great alternative to natural gas for a number of reasons. In addition, heat pumps come out of the box with really efficient cooling and air filtration options. So in terms of being what you want in an HVAC system, you feel comfortable with heating and cooling. You have a utility bill that's manageable, and you can breathe easier, actually feeling the comfort that heat pumps offer. And some of that, especially when we're comparing it to gas-fired systems and older gas-fired systems too, is just how they operate. Ductless systems are designed mechanically to operate a little bit differently than those gas furnaces. Everything from less operational noise, you avoid that spaceship taking off in a closet, crawl space, or attic space. And you're filtering air more continuously with these systems during both heating and cooling season, which with air quality of late, it's really nice to have that peace of mind of knowing your heat pump, especially your ductless heat pump, is filtering air almost 24/7, 365 for you.
A couple other great benefits to the heat pumps, as well as, in a modern heat pump system, they're easy to zone. So whether you have multiple floors or a master suite or any other reason you might want to zone your home, heat pumps make that a lot easier. And then, I think something that we should all be conscious of is if Mike was out there putting a new array on your home, if you have a heat pump, now you can utilize some of that energy you're producing at your house. So I think that's, that's important. We should all be trying to achieve that.
Great. All right, I want to shift over and make sure that we have plenty of time to talk about solar as well. So I want to first check in with Michelle and see if you could share a little bit about what the process was like looking for a solar contractor, and what kind of things were you looking for from your contractor for this?
Sure. So first of all, we were motivated to install solar just because of the climate crisis. We wanted to decrease our carbon footprint. And in the process, we were really just looking for a team that, offered good value and we trusted and we felt comfortable working with, and E2 Solar fit the bill on that one. So we decided to go with them to have our solar panels installed.
All right. And then Mike, I want to
and we definitely appreciate that.
Mike, can you tell us a little bit about what you're looking for in an existing home? This relationship goes both ways. You both have to make sure it's a good fit. So Mike, what are you looking for when you're going to a home to make sure that it's a good fit for solar and going to be a good investment for folks?
Well, certainly the solar resource is one of the terms we use. We use lots of acronyms. It's almost kind of a joke sometimes. We talk about TRF and TOF and things like that. So we're looking for a house that has pretty good orientation. It doesn't have a lot of shading. We have tools that allow us to measure a roof's potential for solar and what the impact and the potential savings and energy production would be from the system based on that tilt and orientation. Something that doesn't get talked about a lot, but we spend a lot of time looking at the actual roofing structure. We've probably had more roofs this year be not qualified due to the age of the roof than I can remember in now almost 17 years of doing this. So roof age, you don't want to put solar up if you're going to have to take it down in 5 years because the roof is worn out. So we do definitely look at the roof structure and the roof type to make sure that it's compatible. And we have ways to attach to virtually any kind of roof that's available, whether it's a standing seam metal or cement tile. Asphalt obviously is fine. So we have good product. It's just making sure that everything about the house makes it a good value for the customer, where they're not going to have to be, doing something in 5 years to come back and, take the system down like we're starting to do now. We've done this long enough that some of our systems are 16 years old and people are needing to get new roofs. So it does, there is a little bit of cost associated with taking it down and putting it back up. So those are the kind of things we're looking for to make sure a house is a good fit for solar.
Great. And then what about looking at incentives or rebates or other ways to help out with the cost of going solar? Can you tell us a little bit about what that landscape looks like? I know it's we call it the solar coaster for a reason. Where are we at this point in time with those incentives?
Yeah, the solar coaster, it is definitely a term that we have used for quite a long time, because it seems like incentives and tax credits and those things are going up or going down or changing, and that's always been the case. So currently we are at a federal tax credit for solar installation of 26% of the total cost of the system. If you choose to install batteries along with that, which we're doing a lot more of, then that can be included. The federal tax credit will drop to 22% for 2021, unless we have some change in legislation this year, which I think at this point with an election year, we don't expect that to happen. So 22% federal tax credit for next year. For customers who are in a investor-owned utility like Pacific Power, there is the Energy Trust of Oregon that will provide funds for solar installations. Currently, the solar installation incentive is 30 cents a watt up to $2,400. So you can put up to an 8 kilowatt system and receive Energy Trust money incentive for all of that. We did also have a Oregon incentive program that was similar to our tax credit that we used to have that launched this year, but due to COVID and the budgetary constraints, we are not going to be guaranteed to have that incentive fund continuing on till next year. So that one is going to be a little bit up in the air. It was kind of a tricky thing to go and apply for a bunch of projects in mid-May, only to have them come back, almost a month later and tell us that they're not sure they're going to fund any of the projects. So that's the solar coaster part of what we deal with day in and day out, is we are trying to incentivize folks to do projects only to turn around and inform them that, oh, guess what, this particular incentive is not going to be available. Again, 2020 has been a year I'm sure we all are ready to forget. So yeah, sometimes we just have to roll with it. I will say one thing about energy efficiency in solar, and I'm sure lots of you have probably heard this, but for years and years and years, we've sort of talked about energy efficiency as the core before going solar. There's a little saying that was made up years ago by a Department of Energy employee, and it was, you have to eat your conservation cookie or your conservation vegetables before you have your solar cookies. So a lot of you have probably heard that one, but it's very true. Is going after conservation a lot of times is cheaper than just throwing a bunch of solar at an energy inefficient building. So.
Yeah, I've also heard another saying, I think from some of those same folks, that putting solar on a leaky house is like pouring a $100 bottle of wine into a paper cup with holes, or just like letting all that really valuable, awesome renewable energy just leak out of the house. So fill up that house and make it super efficient first, and then you get to keep all that good wine to yourself.
That's right. Take that one.
And I guess I joke about the solar coaster, but I think there are a couple of things that are really consistent with solar. That the technology is awesome. It's been around now for, 60 years? Like, you can correct me if I'm wrong there.
April 25th, 1958.
Okay, yeah, close. And it has long warranties. The installers who work here locally have great warranties and workmanship on that work. And so when it comes to actually putting solar on your home and the technology there, there's no doubt that it's going to work and produce energy for you. There's just, there's all this other market stuff that impacts a lot of other industries too. Mike, I had a question come in about how seniors can take advantage of tax credits, or how you see somebody who might not have a tax liability, how they go solar. Are there any options for them?
Well, yeah, not having a tax liability has certainly always been a hurdle to folks wanting to monetize the additional, monies that are available to sort of pay down the cost of a solar project. We talked about this earlier today about this word in payback. And payback is absolutely not the right way to look at any of the technologies we're talking about. Robert and his crew do not want to talk about payback. They want to talk about comfort and efficiency and operating costs. And all of these things, whether we're talking about energy efficiency or solar or driving an electric vehicle, any of those things, it's really more of what we try to talk about to customers is, what is the cost to buy energy from yourself versus the cost to buy energy from the grid? Currently, Pacific Power customers buy energy from the grid at about 12 cents a kilowatt hour. Central Electric customers will pay around 7 cents a kilowatt hour. So if you take some sort of money and whether you borrow it or take it from the bank or however you access that money, and you've used that money to produce energy over time, that relationship can translate to how much it costs to buy energy from yourself. So it's cheaper to put in solar or do energy efficiency or the technologies we're talking about, because the cost to you to save that energy versus what it costs to buy the energy from the utility is cheaper. So we really try to get folks to understand that, doing an energy efficiency upgrade or putting in a solar project is really just taking money and spreading it out over time and buying energy from yourself and not buying it from the power company. So if you can buy it from yourself cheaper than you can buy it from the utility, you're money ahead day one. You've made your home more valuable because it's more comfortable, and it's got a better resale value for the future when you do decide to sell. So there's all kinds of reasons why solar energy efficiency are, they're not just fiscally the thing to do. They make just a lot of financial sense as far as being an investment. That's what we tell a lot of our customers.
There you go. I think you summed that right up. I think we're done, Mike. All right. Well, we still have some questions coming in from the audience. Feel free to chat your questions in either using the question and answer feature here on Zoom, on Facebook Live, or in the chat on Zoom. We have plenty. We could really go all day with this, so we have some more questions for you all lined up. Michelle, I want to come back to you've talked a little bit about reducing your carbon footprint. So I just want to hear about how these retrofits really contribute to your values and the life that you live here, and what you see as a sustainable community in Bend looking like.
Yeah, so first of all, the retrofits that we have done have reduced our carbon footprint, obviously, because as Mike highlighted, we're not, well, it's complicated, but we're not really getting our energy from the grid. When we're talking about electricity, we've got the solar panels, and it's, we're covering 100% of our electricity needs from the solar panels. And then even though we do still use gas for our heat, because of the upgrades that E2 Solar or that Greensavers have done, our gas bills are down 30%, and we're saving overall about $800 a year in energy costs. So in terms of just how much energy we're using, it's substantially reduced, and so that's allowing us to improve our carbon footprint. And then your second question was about a sustainable community and what does that mean for the future? And I think, there are a couple of components to that. One, we have to be taking all of our existing structures and retrofitting them with things like solar panels so that we are reducing the carbon footprint from energy, which is huge, as we all know, within the city of Bend. And then the second part of making a sustainable community is including amenities close by people so that we can make car-free existence a real possibility for everyone. And I think that if we do just those two things, we can get Bend pretty far along in substantially reducing its carbon footprint.
And I think that's a really great point, Michelle, that ties in really well with a piece of Jamie and Josh's project that they haven't chatted about yet tonight. They actually built an ADU on their property as well, and are working on building more housing in the core here of Bend. You'll be able to hear some more from them about that on Thursday. So they have a really big and fun project going on. So I want to hear from you, Jamie and Josh, what some of your future plans for your project are. Are you done yet?
We'll never be done.
That's what I figured.
So what Tess said when she came out to video, she said, "You're never going to be done." So when
we'll keep coming back every year.
Did the retrofit on the 1920s house, I think we had to have Sunlight Solar come out and look at the roof, and it was not a good fit. So with the design of our ADU, we have a pretty large south-facing shed roof style roof, and so solar's on the horizon. Mike, we'll have to have you come out and take a look one of these days and see what you think.
That's definitely the big one that's still on our to-do list, is just get solar on the roof.
Yeah. Okay, before the end of next year at least.
Right? Then
yeah.
The walls of the 1920 house need some work. You said there's an R11 in there, but there's no sheeting behind the siding, and room for improvement with insulation. So that'll be another big project summer down the line, but I hope to move forward with solar first.
Great.
Lindsay,
well, Robert, yeah.
Lindsay, this is Peter. I was just going to jump in here just to kind of play off of what Jamie and Josh were saying, what Michelle have said about their projects. The message I'd like to get across to people who are listening about retrofits is get excited about what's possible with your home. I think a lot of times when I'm presenting and talking to people, they think that high performance homes are reserved for folks who can build brand new houses. And that's not the case at all. It's fun and it's exciting for people to cover and watch, but really we have way more existing housing stock and way more opportunity to make positive impacts on people and on the climate and on the community and the economy with existing housing stock. And you don't have to create a science experiment that, God bless the people who can and do, because we need to learn from that. But most of us, if you just do something a little bit better, you're making a big difference, whether it's your own personal comfort or whether you're trying to do your part with the environment. Like the teams and the experts that we have here with Mike and Greensavers and everybody, like you can have a high performance existing home, like projects we've been working on. If you're going to do a cosmetic retrofit, do an energy retrofit at the same time. Your percentage cost increase on the project is minimal, but your benefits are way more than just the eye candy. They're all the way through the bones of the house. So we are seeing people building net zero energy projects or remodeling net zero energy homes. So you have a 1,500, 1,600, 1,700 square foot ranch home that's 60s, 70s, 80s. You do a few of these things we've talked about here, some insulation, good HVAC, put some solar on top, and all of a sudden your home is as good as any code-built home today right now, probably better, and as good as these, I think there's this sense that net zero energy homes are something only a few can have. Really, it's not that complicated anymore. Like we got it figured out. Greensavers can help you, we can help you, Mike can help you on any home you're living in right now. It takes some planning. It's not like you wave a wand and you're done tomorrow. But with a little bit of planning, a little bit of effort, these things are not out of reach of the common homeowner.
I think that describes.
Peter, I think that was so perfect. Yeah. Sorry, Jamie, did I cut you off there?
It's okay. Yeah, Josh and I can really relate to that. We've done incremental improvements over the 6 years since we've owned the house, and we'll continue to do so. And yeah, that's what you're speaking to. It takes some saving and planning and collaboration. That little by little, it just keeps getting better.
Yeah, I agree with all that. Peter, that was perfectly stated. And that's been our experience in our home. It was built in 1992. And over the course, like Jamie, over the course of the last 5 or 6 years, we've incrementally done our energy upgrades, and it's made a tremendous difference. And something else I didn't mention, this summer we have air conditioning, and the energy upgrades have been so useful at keeping the house cool that our air wasn't kicking on until, I don't know, maybe 1 or 2 p.m., sometimes 3 or 4 p.m. So we could go all day without using our AC simply because we have these energy upgrades. Whereas before we had all that work done, I'd say the AC would easily kick in, 10 a.m., 11 a.m. when things started to just heat up. So the comfort is a huge thing. And then of course, the benefit of the cost savings. And it's been amazing and rewarding and exciting to sort of see it all unfold, because it's hard to believe that something as simple as sealing air leaks and improving insulation and ductwork would cause such a big shift. So Peter, you're totally right that you can make an older home retrofitted to be just as energy efficient as the new builds.
Sometimes better.
I think so.
We go into some new builds that are quite atrocious.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important piece to take away. Like you were saying, Peter, we have way more existing homes here than we're ever going to have new homes. Well, I mean, who knows? Maybe I shouldn't put that out there. Who knows what our future here holds? But we have a large base of housing stock here that has a lot of potential. And you can look at these homes and say, like, oh, this is something that we'll never be able to fix because there's too many issues, or you can look at them as seeing lots of opportunities. And when you start chipping away one project at a time, you can start to actually make a difference in a lot of these homes.
And if people I was just going to say, if they're feeling overwhelmed, like hearing all these things flying at them, Robert mentioned it earlier, just start with Greensavers or someone like that doing an energy audit. That will help you put your plan in place and allocate budget and just take it a little step at a time and what are the priorities. So if you don't know the first thing to do, just call up Greensavers or whoever's doing energy audits and let them kind of map it out for you.
That is a big component of a home energy audit. We tend to conduct it as a whole actual separate appointment a number of days after the home energy audit and the materials that are provided to the homeowner. Being big advocates of creating a smart, useful roadmap for homeowners and using their budgets, their goals for creating that short, medium, and long-term roadmap. And while it is not the most sexy part of owning a home or making improvements to it, utility incentives and financing programs are oftentimes a conversation too, which can make these more manageable in the form of monthly payments. And I will say it is the large majority of clients who are seeking financing through some resource for the projects we're tackling with them. So there's options available for most homeowners in almost all measures.
Depends how big of an energy geek you are and how sexy it is, right? You know?
That's exactly what I was going to say. We have a great group, and for anybody who's interested and wants to dig in a little more, we have this group that's been meeting informally that we call the Zero Energy Enthusiasts, and we've been having, well, the happy hours haven't been as lively lately because we haven't been able to meet in person, but I just really hope that this is a conversation that we can start to normalize in Bend, and that we become a community where, you know, we have our beer bikes and dogs, and we also have super awesome energy efficient housing that keeps people all safe and healthy and is durable, and you know, we can be known for all sorts of really great things. So you all are putting us on that path and helping us have these conversations and putting the faces to the projects so people can see these aren't just pie in the sky ideas, like there are people who actually do it. So I think that's really important, and I thank you all for joining us here today. I felt like I was being a little risky turning my video on because our internet has been so poor here, but I wanted to make sure I made a connection with everybody as we're wrapping up. So Neil, can you just pull up our last slide here? Just wanted to point to some of the other events that we have coming up again. And we'll be following up after this event in the next few days, sending out the recording in case you're super inspired and want to share it with all of your friends, because you know it's a super sexy, fun conversation. And we'll also share some contact info if you want to reach out to any of these professionals here to get an energy checkup or dive deep in, to air sealing your home or look at solar options. So you can engage some more with some of these same experts and homeowners here with events throughout the week, and you can check those out on our website. And Neil, you can go to the next slide. You can also visit one of the sites in person. This site is super inspiring because they are building zero energy homes, but they're doing it for an affordable housing community. So I think that if organizations that are doing these projects and striving to meet affordability goals can build zero energy, then it's really a conversation we need to be having across the new construction industry. So you can visit their site on Saturday, September 26th, and you can sign up for those tours on our website. And then next slide. All right, thank you, everybody. We hope that we can all engage some more and continue these conversations. I hope you all have a great evening and have so much fun telling all your family and friends everything that you learned tonight. All right, until tomorrow, we'll be back with Zero Energy Homes tomorrow evening at 5 o'clock. All right, thanks everybody for joining us today.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you.